Hello, it's Claire from Imagine Design Create, and I'm with you today to talk you through a paper craft project using various different mediums and using the range of stamps designed by Kerry called the Fly Free. I'm also using a cardstock, which is a range of products you'll find also on the Imagine Design Create website called the Matte and Layer Card Cuts. It's an ingenious idea and one that will take away all the stress that you have in the measuring and the cutting when you create your mats and layers on either your card making projects or your paper craft projects. I'm using the two mats today. I'm using the 5 3/4 inch square, and I'll be matting that onto the 6-inch square mat. I'm creating a background with the Faber-Castells. Again, all details of all the products that I'm using today will be found on the Imagine Design Create website, and I'll put all the details of all the links, the products, in the video description below. So I'm quite new to gelatos myself. But I've enjoyed playing around with these. I like the colours, the intensity of the colour that you get from them. They create a really lovely background. As you see, I'm just using them like crayons at the moment, and I'm just going to take a damp wet wipe. It's not wet, not juicy wet like it comes like it is when it comes direct out of the packet. It's lost a little bit of its moisture, but what it does, it enables you just that bit of moisture just to blend the gelatos there. You can see that as soon as the colour hits that moisture on there, you can blend it and move that across the page. And you can just blend these really easy. Again, you're getting a slight bit of curl, you can see from the cardstock here, but it's once it's dry, this cardstock is really nice to work with. Now, if you can just see, I'm just going ahead and just building up the different layers, the colours here. So with the background created, it's probably a good idea just to give that a quick dry with your heat gun, or allow that to dry naturally before you start stamping on there or start introducing different colours. Now you can still see the quality of the cardstock here because there's been no pilling of the fibres on this cardstock, and there's hardly any warping on this at all. So now I'm going to introduce another colour using a stencil. Again, it's just another way to use your gelatos. Now I'm bringing in an Imagination Craft stencil. As you can see, it's an A4 size, but don't be scared of using a stencil that's larger than your piece of paper. You can just pick out sections of the pattern here. So I'm going to come in with a contrasting colour. I'm going to come in with the green, and I'm just going to scribble over the top of the stencil. So yeah, the stencil itself is actually picking up some of the colour. Then if you take your wet wipe, again, you could probably use the same one, as long as it's not too wet. You're just going to go over the top of the stencil, and you're going to be taking the colour that's sitting on the plastic through the cutout detail itself. And you can just move that about, and you'll see that will actually blend through onto the design underneath. Now I'm just going to add a bit of blue as well. And you can see there, we've added an extra bit of design detail. Now there's still enough colour on this stencil that we can just move this down, and we can just still add different areas of that around the background that we're creating here. and you'll just get varying degrees of colour as you do this. So you really do only need to use a tiny amount of the gelatos while you're working. So I'm just going to add a little bit of extra detail. I'm going to use just some distress ink and just the edge of like one of your store cards, your loyalty cards, and I just want to add just a couple of lines of detail. And if you just add that into your distress pad like that, you're just going to be using the edge like a stamp as it were, and we're just going to pull that across just to create just some interesting lines. Now I just want to even up this green a little bit. We've got some still on our stencil here, so I'm just going to, I don't want too much, it's just to pull off some of that colour for the gelatos from the stencil and just move that onto the edge of this cardstock there. Just so as you have the continuity of the colour coming in. Again, I'm still using this same baby wipe. And we'll just pull the colour off there and we'll move this onto this corner here too. So we'll just allow that background to dry a little, and I'm going to work on a smaller layer which I'll be using to put the sentiment onto. So again, I'll just take some of the gelatos . Now the beauty of working with these matte and layer cardstocks is that when you come to create or think about making the layer for your main piece of artwork, you can just work onto one of these mats, onto the slightly larger mat, and you can create a coordinating border. So you don't need to worry about whether you've got the right coloured plain cardstock or design paper to match what you've just made, particularly if you're making a bespoke background as we have done just now. You can carry on using the same colour palette that you've been using, and create the background that will match perfectly. Now this layer is ready for stamping onto. Now this layer is ready to stamp onto, so I'm going to stamp the sentiment first from the fly-free stamp set. I'm using a Versafine black ink. I know that this gives a really good black impression, nice solid impression. So we know we have our wording that fits on there nicely, and we can use that to work around that when we stamp the rest of our feathers onto the main background here. So I'm going to be using the larger solid feather here, plus two of these smaller ones here, which have got the beautiful bird detail. I shall be stamping these in a lighter colour to start with. I'm using a distress ink. This one's fossilised amber because I know that this blends nicely into the background. I'm just keeping my sentiment handy just so as I can get the placement right with the feathers, and I'm just going to be stamping those there. Now initially I just want that subtle look. Again, it's all about building up the background. So having built up the subtlety in the background there, I just want to show off the beauty of these stamps by stamping them in the Versafine black, so they really stand out. And this will just draw your eye to the detail and this lovely sentiment, which can be used for any number of occasions. So I just place in the sentiment again, just so as you get a bearing of where everything is working on the page and on the background. I'm just going to put that there, and I know that I want this detail stamp to go in about there. Now, because of the quality of these stamps and the thickness of this photopolymer, you really don't need to press down too hard. I'm holding the stamp there just a little bit so the ink can take to the paper, but the impression you get and the detail that you get from these is amazing. Hopefully you can see that there. So we have that little bit of detail there, and I'm just going to use the smaller of the stamps in black again. From a design perspective, things work better in threes, so I think one more of the darker feathers would work really well. And we shall leave it at that. Now that's ready to mat onto the background. Just as a finishing touch to even up the background there, I'm just going to use one of the sentiment from the Fly Free stamp set here. If you want to fly, give up the things that weigh you down. I'm just going to use that just subtly in the background. I'm going to ink it with the fossilised amber that I've used previously on the feathers here, and I'm just going to stamp that into the background. It's just a nice subtle way of adding a little bit extra detail. So there we are, that's using just one of Kerry's stamp sets, the Fly Free from the new stamp range. Feel free to look on the website for all the other designs. There will be more videos coming soon showing you how you can use the other stamp sets and how they all mix and match with each other also. Thanks for joining me today. See you again soon.